8. Last one we actually have to do math work for. After this, it's just a survey and then we're all done and ready for summer. I'm ready.
This week features volume and surface area of the cylinder.
And this is the last part that you still need to know for your assessment. Your assessment will be about cylinders, rectangular prisms, and triangular prisms. Volume and surface area for all of them. So watch back over the weeklies before you take your test. Here is example 1. We are going to find the surface area of the cylinder. Any ideas? Okay. So the way I picture it is I take my cylinder and I break it apart. And what I end up with is a rectangle with a circle at one end and another circle at the other end. And then if you rolled it all up together, you would get that cylinder shape. So about the cylinder, we have a radius of 6. And we know that the height for this rectangle is 11. Can we find the area of any of these 3 shapes easily?
Yeah.
Which one? The circles, and how do we find that?
We will do area equals pi times 6.
Which will give us A equals 36 pi. And I suggest that you keep the pi until the very end. When you get your final answer, you can then put it in the calculator with the pi and round it, but keep your pi's until then, otherwise you get really nasty decimals and it's just not pretty. So this right in here is going to be 36 pi. This one right here is going to be the same. Now the question is, how are we going to find this missing portion right here? Right, because when we take our paper, when we take any piece of paper and we roll it up into this shape, it's a rectangle. But when we roll it together and you look at it, it's actually the circumference of the circle. So how do we find circumference again?
C equals 2
Times the
six.
radius of the circle. So we end up with C equals 12 pi. And this circumference that we found for the circle will become our length of our rectangle. Now in order to finish, we only need one more piece. How are we going to find the area for inside of here? So we have 11 times 12 pi, and you're saying it's 132? So our last piece is 132 pi. And now how can we find the entire surface area altogether? We add all of them together. So we're going to have 36 pi plus 36 pi plus 132 pi. And use your calculators.
I got 640.88.
So we have
Doesn't have to round.
640.8849. We can round. I didn't specify, so what would you like to round to? Nearest 100? That one sounds great. So if we round this, we end up with a surface area of 640.88. Do you know what we started out with? What were our units? The units for the measurements.
Meters.
Meters. So what should our answer then be? Meters squared, because we're talking about area. So our final answer for this first problem was 640.88 meters squared. A lot of work, right? You want to try one? How about this one?
Find the surface area of a cylinder with a height of 9 inches and a diameter of 3 inches. So draw the cylinder.
And it's a really great idea to draw yourself a picture of a word problem because it will make it so much easier for you to see what's going on. Now, can you do all your work from this picture? Or do you want to draw a net? If you don't need it, it's okay, but I always think that it really helps to have the net available because it makes it easier to see all the pieces that you need to find your area for. That also works for triangular and rectangular prisms.
Do we need the radius?
What are we going to find first?
The area.
Yeah, we'll need the radius because the area is pi r squared.
So what is the radius of
Mm-hmm. Which gives us 1.5. Pi times 1.5 squared. And I can tell you 1.5 squared if you want to. It becomes 2.25. So you could rewrite that as A equals 2.25 pi.
And next, we find the area of the rectangle.
So what we found right now is that this is 2.25 pi and this one is 2.25 pi. Can we find the area of this right now? Do we have two measurements to multiply?
No.
So what do we need?
The circumference.
The circumference to find our second side, which comes from rolling the circle one time around. So the circumference of a circle with a diameter of 3. You would need the 2 if you were using the radius. With the diameter, we can just say that circumference is 3 pi. And then that will be your second side on your rectangle. 3 pi. And it needs the pi part because the pi is attached to it. Because think about it, it's about 9 because that's 3.14. So now how are you going to find your area inside? And again, don't forget your pi is attached to it, so it's really 27 pi. And all 3 of them together, and that will give you a final surface area for the cylinder.
So 1.5 is 2.5.
Here. It helps if you write them in the different colors. So all the blue ones are your areas, and those are the 3 that you're going to end up adding together. And we end up with 98.960, so we can leave it at 98.96. And because you labeled it so beautifully, you can find the answer really easily. So 98.96 inches squared is our surface area for this cylinder. Now let's go on to area, which is another part that we need. All right, so now we're finding the volume of cylinders. And if you think back to our first problem of this unit when we talked about the container ships that are shipping all these containers across and they had them in layers, really all it is you find the area of your base and then you multiply it times the height to find the answer. So if we're looking at our circle with a diameter of 6 millimeters, and a height of 8. If we can find the area of this circle and then multiply it by 8, we will get the volume. Okay, so how can we find the area of this here circle? And again, the 3 came from taking the diameter of 6, cutting it in half because we need the radius. Mhm. We're not going to worry about it yet. So now we have one circle. And imagine that we're layering 8 of them on top of each other. So we're just going to multiply the whole thing by 8, and that will give us the volume. So the volume will equal 9 times 8 times pi.
9 times 8 times 5.
Mhm. And we can multiply our 9 and 8 together.
That's 7.
And then multiplying it by the pi will give me 226.19.
220.
And then what should our units be for this, our label? And we're talking about volume. Every volume should always be cubed. And there's our answer. This one is a little bit easier than the surface area, a lot less work to do. Basically just a whole bunch of multiplications put together. All right, one more.
Find the volume of the cylinder below.
All right, so we have a cylinder here. It has a radius of 7 feet and a height of 15 feet.
So first we have to find the area.
Sure.
Maybe 49. 49 times.
It doesn't matter, honestly, which way you write it. I always like to write the number first because it sounds better for some reason. But because multiplication, you can switch your factor, so it's totally okay to write it either way.
Is it 15 times 4?
Yes. And we're multiplying together 15, 49, and pi. And in your calculator, you will get the enormous number of 2,309.07. And our units. All done. So again, all of this is a matter of multiplying things together and remembering that you need a square when we're talking about the area. Next week, weekly 4.9 is simply a survey for you to share with me. What did you like about the weeklies? What did you hate about the weeklies? What can I do better next year for my new 7th graders to give them a better experience at the weeklies? And I want to thank you, Nahiro, for being part of these because it's much better when a student explains than if I explain it to you over and over again. So anything else you have to say? Have an awesome summer, everybody, and I will see you in the fall. Bye.